Well, hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I have yet another guest, and her name is Laurie, and she's going to express to us her story on this bipolar journey and everything in between. So without further ado, hello Laurie, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, thanks. So could you tell us, how this came to be for you? How many years passed that you were diagnosed with bipolar, and was it one or two, and how do you get along with it?
It's been quite the ride. I have I have suffered with depression since I was a teenager. And first trauma in life was in my early 20s. And not full trauma, yeah, it was pretty traumatic. And so I went on antidepressants. So I stayed on antidepressants and SSRIs from my 30s through my 50s.
Okay.
And they never worked. They just made me fat and numb, and they just never worked. And so then in the spring of 2009, so that was what, 11 years ago, um, my 21-year-old son, got testicular cancer, and he died in February of 2010.
Oh man, I'm
I mean,
sorry to hear that, Lori.
yeah, so of 2010, Joshua died, and I spiraled totally out of control. And I had this great therapist who saw me for like the first year. And I have a brother and a mother with bipolar. So, I never saw myself with bipolar because they were worse than I was. So I guess I also was really always in denial that I could be as bad as my brother. His was more of a drug-induced psychosis of bipolar.
Okay.
So because I never did drugs or anything like that, I just assumed I was immune. And so this therapist was, after about a year of seeing her, she's like, I don't want to scare you, but I really think that this isn't straight up depression. I think it's just a little bit of bipolar, that you're bipolar one. Oh man, I just flipped out. I'm like, no, no, no. And so she said to just ask me to trust her and to try an old bipolar med, which was a Mictal. And so I did. I went ahead and I really trusted her. She was really a good therapist. And so we got off the SSRIs and all that stuff. And then, so she put me on a small dose of Lamictal, and then she kept increasing it. And I could tell a difference. Like, I could tell that I was, my moods weren't so up and down, up and down. And so I was super grateful for Lamictal. And that was in 2010, 11. So that's 10 years now, 11 years. So I was on it for 7 years, but during that 7 years, my health, from diabetes to fibromyalgia, I mean, my body just
Yeah.
tanked. Um, I continued the Lamictal until insurance said that I had to go back to mental health. And I'm like, no, I'm not going back to mental health because that's where I worked through all my trauma with my son's death. So I don't want to be triggered. So insurance actually took me off 5 years ago.
Okay.
And so I got on this super health kick where I grow my own food, I raise my own protein.
Yes.
I'm a farmer. And so I really started working hard. I reversed my diabetes. I lost 140 pounds.
Wow.
Um, but then another trauma happened, And I'm like, I could feel myself really spinning myself out of control again. Like, I can't just do things in a healthy way, like a balanced. I have to go all or none,
I'm the
you
same
know.
way. Yep.
It just drives me insane. Like, I can't just do things normal. Like, I have to, like, it just drives me crazy. So I started some CBT, online CBT. That therapist, she wasn't very good. And so then I found another therapist that was doing DBT. And so I have been learning a lot of coping skills, a
Okay.
lot of things.
Sorry, Laura, I just wanted to interject for the audience that doesn't know about, you said CBT, right? Could,
Cognitive behavior
yes,
therapy.
if you could just, give a brief description of what those two definitions are.
Cognitive cognitive behavior therapy is basically not focusing on the ants in your brain, the anti-automatic negative thinking, and using positive affirmations and behavior to combat the negativity.
Yes.
And then I did a lot of that on my own with just Google search and words and memes and quotes and index cards all over the house with positivity. But then it was when I was turned into the DBT, which is, I always forget what that one means. It's diversion conjugative therapy, I believe.
Okay.
And it's in a group setting. So we do use Microsoft Teams. And the therapist gives us, every week, she teaches us coping skills. Right now, we're on being mindful and meditation and shame, and how we let the shame and the delusional thinking and catastrophizing. I mean, all of these, I've been doing it 9 months now, and I'm able to pull myself out of an episode, and I'm able to control my um, thoughts.
Perfect.
I can,
So,
the, the overthinking, I can, like, I'm not even taking a sleeping pill anymore.
that's awesome. So you feel that majorly getting back on track has been in conjunction with your meditation and DBT, CBT, and whatnot, those different therapies?
Yes, learning to control my mind, breathe. I mean, if you would have told me that I've always poo-pooed the whole meditation,
I used to do.
mindfulness. I was like, oh, there's no way to quiet my mind,
Yeah.
guys. Don't even waste your time. And here I am, 61 years old, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe it's something I should practice. I should try at least instead of being so opinionated. Um,
Yeah, most definitely being open-minded to things that you might hear being therapeutic for other individuals and
mhm.
attempting it yourself. Just being accepting of different holistical, ways of treating this disorder, this bipolar mental illness, or however you want to label it.
I
Um,
don't want to label it. That's the
I don't
thing. I
either.
really agreed. I
Right?
agreed with you. I don't want to label. Like, I don't. Okay, so my daughter last night put up a thing about what to use for insomnia. I can see a lot of my behavior in my daughter.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can. I can see it. She's a young mommy, and all night or before, trying to go to sleep, I'm in my head. Okay, got to tell her about. Don't be open to meditation. Be open to stopping the ants in your brain, the automatic thinking. I'm having this conversation in my head. And then I'm like, wait, wait, wait. You're doing it again. You're overthinking it. You're overanalyzing it.
Yeah.
What I'm going to share with her, what I'm not going to share with her, because I haven't ever told my kids that the diagnosis was bipolar.
Oh, really? Wow.
No. I
Shoot.
have not.
Was that out of fear based, just because you thought that maybe they would look at you different, or afraid that perhaps they would receive that same label too, maybe? Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it has a lot of stigma attached to it.
Oh, big time. I've kept mine hidden um, from my family for a long time. Like, my wife and son, and things have a habitual way of being let out of the bag, so to speak, and it eventually did. And back then, I didn't have a clear understanding of what I was truly going through, besides, the mundane routine of taking therapy and going to repetitive sessions trying to get therapeutic help. And it was a shame-based way of looking
Yeah.
at things. My perspective was totally off, and since I've come around, this is a big 180 for me. But I think that, again, having a platform like this to release these stories out to the public for people to grab a hold of, and maybe gravitate to have an understanding of what it's actually about, instead of looking at it just on a Western side of pharmaceutical viewpoints, and thinking that medication is the only dire way of solving all our riddles and,
Yeah.
aggravations in our minds. But it's definitely not. I've been meditating and doing qigong and practicing yoga and mindfulness and awareness, and just reading steadily for, I would say, a good part of a year and a half, 2 years, and drastic difference for me. Putting down the bottle and picking up a book, and just channeling, these therapeutic methods throughout the course of my day so that I can function. Um, I used to be an advocate for medication, thinking that was the only way to reverse whatever damage was done. But in reality, it is nothing more than a band-aid effect that's solely there to kick you in the ass and to get you,
Yeah.
on the right path. But
Yeah, it's crazy because I had a bout, well, the reason I even got into that group was just because I could feel myself, the rage came on. Like there was no reason for me to be raging. It was like out of the blue. Nothing was happening out of the ordinary. Everything was calm on the farm. My husband is in a good place. Everybody, I couldn't understand why I was like if he would move a certain way in the bed, I would freak out like rage.
yeah,
And he was like, something is wrong. And this was probably the first time that rage just popped its ugly head out of nowhere. And it lasted about 2 weeks. And of course, all my tools and my toolbox went out the window, because I didn't really know how to handle the rage. I do a lot of different supplements, but so they, of course, my therapist was like, I want you to make a med appointment.
mm,
And I'm like, but you know how I am anti-med. And she's like, well, I clearly see it.
mm,
I clearly see it, Laurie, and things that you've said to me in confidence. Because now I go for one-on-one. And this is the first time I've stuck with one-on-one on a weekly basis and group.
mm,
And so she had me describe, like, didn't even know it was rage. She had me just initiate it with a color, with a feeling, and it's red, it's hot. And so I'm like, wow, I'm identifying my emotion. And so I went ahead and made the appointment for the med appointment,
mm,
but I took every bipolar medicine out there that
yeah,
is discussed in those groups, and I researched them. And they even talked about an injection. Holy crap. Inject
yeah,
me with this shit? And that freaked me out. Like, oh my God, here I am tied up with mental health. And if they think I'm unstable, they could like admit me and put a freaking shot in my body. So I really backed off sharing with them. I didn't understand that somebody else could take my power away like that.
yeah. It's kind of scary because you feel like, they're there for you, and your best interest, but it doesn't really feel like a safe place after you start to send out your little antennas, and then you can kind of
Right.
sniff it out and realize, okay, no, this is a business, and I am, you know, more or less a guppy for these guys to just
Right.
poke and prod at.
Yes.
Yeah, I firmly
So,
believe
I
that.
mean, thankfully, my therapist, she's assured me that she respects my decision to be unmedicated, and she had a very good idea to just go ahead and meet with him and have it on the back burner, just for a plan B.
Yep.
I'm good with that. But when I researched all of these meds, and I mean, I think there was 9 to 11 of them, they all had blood sugar. They all raised blood sugar. Now you're talking to a type 2 diabetic that was not a diabetic, but when I started the meds in 2010 is when I became pre-diabetic, and the weight just kept packing on. I got up to 325 pounds
Wow.
um, on 180 units of insulin. So that is my number
Jeez.
one thing. My livers was shot. I was having kidney function issues. And the only way I knew how to fix all of that was to get off all of the poisons and fast and eat clean.
So when you say fast, did you taper quickly or did you just abruptly stop? Like,
I did. I did.
ugh, how'd that work?
I, you know, I guess because I wasn't aware that it was so dangerous that it never really, I didn't put much thought into it. I do know that, okay, so I started back on Lamictal and mirtazapine in April of 2019 because we went through a little bit of a trauma. And I had lost 140 pounds off insulin. Blood sugar was great. And like with it, so that was April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. So by November, I'd put 40 pounds back on. I was fasting and eating the exact same thing I had done 2 years prior.
Right.
I didn't connect it with the meds. And then I asked the doctor, I said, what is going on? She goes, oh, nonchalantly, it's the meds.
Yeah.
What?
Right.
And so I waited until February 8th, 7th is Joshua's anniversary date. And on February 8th, 1 year ago today, I just dumped them all. I said, no more. Now, has this year been hard? Yeah, it's been hard. Um, Now I've connected the dots. I've researched that cold turkey, just dumping like that was probably pretty dangerous,
Yeah, it definitely is. But you,
and that I shouldn't have done it that way, but it's how I did it. And so I've been fighting my way back this whole last year.
good on you though. If people aren't familiar to the idea of addictions, sorry, not addictions, but like when your body gets adapted to something, even in a sugar form, alcohol, if you don't wean yourself off any of those substances, it has a really critical negative effect on your mind and body.
Yeah.
But definitely with the chemicals in your brain, when you have dopamine, serotonin, and all the other ones, and these medications are in there dumping loads of the synthetic crap in your body, so your body adjusts to it and adapts, and then no longer needs to continue on that regimen of producing. So it goes into like hibernation mode. And
Hmm.
when that's no longer there, the body's like, oh my God, what the fuck is happening, right? And then you spiral. I've done it. I mentioned in another podcast about a doctor ripped me off one med, an antipsychotic, to dump me on another, and I was just crashing big time within less than a week, I think. But managed to level out and carry on. But it was a difficult time, very rough for myself, my family, and so I'd highly advise to people, if you're going to discontinue meds, do it with the doctor's,
Yeah.
guidance, and definitely taper.
Yeah.
Abruptly, you can just sink everything, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, I can look back at this last year and I'm like, okay, so part of this is due to how I chose to get off, you know, and then I think COVID had a lot to do with this year too. This was a
Most definitely.
bad year
Yeah.
too, like even though it really hasn't changed my lifestyle because I'm a homesteader, but um just the that I'm not a masker. I know I'm terrible. Um, I I just I don't know. I can't. And so watching people walk around with masks and freaking comply and all this really sent me into a tailspin.
Yeah.
I had COVID in March of last year. Actually,
I think
wow,
we
today
all
is
did, man. Like, not. I mean, some people's perspective. I'm guessing you're probably on the same line as me. And sorry for the quick interruption, Laurie, but I just wanted to touch base on that. I'm anti-mask. I wear it out of respect of others, so I don't have a corral of people getting angered and bursting out in a public scene. But I do more or less simply just drop it below my nose so I can breathe through my nose. You
right.
know, as fresh
Well,
as
I
the
mean,
air can be.
if I'm
But
in a store that absolutely requires it, absolutely,
yeah,
I will. Like to comply with other people, like you said, but I have never had. I mean, sure, I had to travel back to my daughter's to help her with her third baby in April of last year. So, of course, I wore a mask on the airplane and that kind of thing. But, um, uh, I mean, I'm very rural. I mean, for me to have gotten it is so crazy because I had planned a function at our church and had like 35 people there, and four of us came down with it. Now, they weren't even
wow.
tests on March 5th a year ago. They weren't, was no tests.
No.
And because I didn't comply with going over to the ER, um, they turned me into the COVID-19 response team. And so they had they called me 2 times a week. So they were collecting data on us
Yeah, big
before
time.
we even really knew what the heck was going on.
Yeah, my idea on that notion is simply that it's no more dangerous than any other given annual flu, and people die of
Right.
air pollution more so than this COVID crap. But
Yeah.
the other
I
thing
mean,
for
it's
me
just a
too,
hell. It really is. It really was a hard year because like I'd want to go to the nursery, the plant nursery. They're closed. Okay. So I just worked in my hydroponic greenhouse and worked on myself this year. So
same.
that's kind of what COVID did for me is it was like, okay, the best thing that came out of it was Zoom and Microsoft Teams.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, I found it was a nice tool. Not a tool, sorry, a specialized time to actually dive deep
Right.
within ourselves. A lot of people took advantage of it, and so you can look at that as a flip side to the negative aspects of it all. Yeah, it was a blessing for me and the world, as a whole, to be honest. The water's cleared, the air was clear, the pollution was down.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was necessary for the entire civilization and Mother Earth to just put the brakes on everything for a while anyway to
Yeah, and I think
rejuvenate,
it woke
right?
a lot of people up about being so
Yeah,
reliant on the government
big time.
for food and for like, people were messaging me and like, we can't find yeast. I'm like, well, you can make your own yeast.
Yeah,
And they're like, what? And I said, yeah, you put a potato in water and let it ferment and it will gather all the
yeah,
yeasts in your home and in your environment. So that was kind of cool to turn people
yeah.
on to self-sufficiency. Um, I ended up giving a lot of our pork and turkey away and lamb because they really only had maybe a week's worth of food in their refrigerators and freezers. So I think it woke a lot of people up to being a little more prepared.
Big time.
Um, and it was a test for me, like, wow, I'm really set. I have a flour mill and whole grains that I can grind into flour, and so yeah, I it was kind of a great test.
Yeah. I remember speaking to a couple of peers before all this pandemic stuff going on, and we used to talk about being resilient and self-sufficient in those fields and how important it's going to be in the near future. And I believe that everything is going to be, steadily declining anyways in the production of food and, you know, the
Right.
accessibilities of going to the farmer's market and different things. It's not always going to be, feasible. So it's best to learn now so that you have yourself, taken care of and your families as well. But the only issue I really had, well, besides breathing in my own bacteria, but with the mask, it felt like, all these years I was told to shut up about my diagnosing, not discuss it with people because it makes people fearful, the stigmatic mindset and all that. So I guess it's kind of like being a vigilante against all this, anti-masked and all that. And a lot of people don't jive with that, but it does feel like a hands across your mouth when you're wearing a mask, and that's what I've been told pretty much my whole life. And I'm like, fuck
Mhm.
that, rip that off and let me speak my truth. And if you don't like it, then, like that's the other thing with this platform. This content is for me and my guests to express our individualism and our ideologies on different viewpoints in the world and on subjects. So if people don't like it, man, you don't have to follow, right? You don't have to listen to the content. Go find another channel. It's that easy. And it's not
You
to
don't
be
have to like,
ignorant,
I
but
mean, I got really tied up in the politics here in the US the first time in my life that I have actually, well, I've never voted. I'm 61 years old and I had never voted. But I felt like this was a year that was so critical that I went ahead and registered and I voted for the first time in my life at 61.
wow.
And what we've been through here with our election and with everything was like I had to finally, like you said, I had to choose. I don't read those threads anymore. I don't read those things because they were clearly agitating me.
Yeah.
Um, and there's nothing I can do about it. Yes, I can get involved with election reform, but I was just on a thread this morning and it angered me because they were talking about the vaccine and all the liberals were like, we all have to get vaccinated. Excuse me, I live in a free country. I live in under a constitutional law. I have rights. And I started to pop off, and then I'm like, you're doing it again.
Yeah.
You're doing it again. You are in a conversation on a thread reading, but you can choose not to be there. And you can choose to scroll past it. You can choose. So, I mean, that was a big deal for me this morning to be able to choose to just get off of that thread, not read every comment.
That's right. Yeah,
And it's
especially.
weird to me how black and white people are white and then I mean, I live on the border. So I'm affected by these immigrants coming in illegally, literally, physically affected by the the illegals. Like I am 25 miles from the border wall
Wow.
and they come through here on foot in groups and I'm not against immigrants coming to the United States. Legally go through the door. You know, use the door. Get
Yeah.
the proper paperwork. But no, I mean, I had to get 3 guard dogs this year just because of the illegal activity.
Wow. Shit.
So it's a real thing. And so when they just bust in 1,000, picked him up on the other side of the wall where the wall's not completed, which is directly behind our property. Um, Out of the, I think it was over 1,000 they picked up,
Okay.
109 tested positive for COVID. Didn't quarantine them, didn't do shit, just drove them to the little towns and released them. What? Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, especially if they're so forceful with their propaganda of, getting their information out there on so many different social media platforms about, how deadly the
Hmm.
virus is and to take
Yeah,
precautions and blah, blah, blah.
our
Yeah,
children aren't even in school
no, right?
here.
This doesn't make any sense. And when
It,
you
it,
start
it's
connecting dots, because it's an invisible, how can I even put it, man? Like, I've claimed bullshit since the beginning when I heard it breaking out in China. I'm like, oh God, here we go. And of course, people are going to be, talked into this fear mongering tactics that are utilized steadily with our politicians and the elites and hierarchies and all that shit. But it's unfortunate that we have to be, I guess, pinned down and to think that
yeah,
way.
it's
You know.
crazy. I have friends in Canada, and you're in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have some friends in Canada that were calling me like once a week. Like, what's really happening? What we hear, what we see on our TV, and I had a friend from Australia or New Zealand, I'm sorry. What's really happening? And I said, it, it's not good. Like, we are not in a good place in America. Like, they are
Yeah.
trying to take our freedom away. And I'm sorry, but from the get-go, like you, to me, this was all bio warfare.
Yeah.
This was a numbers game. This was to reduce the senior population. This was testing the waters, and I'm 100% adamantly against a socialist country in the United States. I talked at length with people in Canada that, they're paying $7 a gallon for gas.
Yeah, it's crazy. Totally crazy.
You know,
Right.
they have free healthcare, great. But, who's it's really not free. You're paying for it with a beer. You're paying for
Yeah,
it with,
that's how I see it too. Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know
Yeah.
how we got off on
Well,
politics. Go.
yeah, I know, right? In all
I'm
honesty,
supposed to be
though,
detoxing from that shit.
yeah, well, I mean, it's in our faces steadily all day long, but in terms of the, thinking that we have free healthcare and it's a great place to live, that's not really the case, as you just expressed. You're paying tenfold in different manners to cover those expenses. And for me, as an individual now, like, I don't need to go see a doc as often as I did when I was on meds. Like, holy shit, I'm in with a psychiatrist, family physician, I'm going to see specialists, and now that I'm off that shit, I feel better. I'm not around these doctors who are, you know, probe me and tell me how I got to do this or take this, take that. So in reality, how much of my tax-paying money has to be invested into that? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I hate going to the gas station and filling up my truck and paying probably about 110, 120 now to fill it. That's
Really?
crazy. Yeah.
We're going
Um,
nuts because it jumped up to 55.
Yeah, I think it's a dollar. I do some premium, and I think it's a dollar 20. No, a dollar 35 per liter, and it's like wow. So I would rather forfeit the extra taxes we pay out, and
Hmm.
have to pay for some of the health care, I guess, surgeries. I mean, obviously, you guys pay quite a boatload in that, don't you?
You know, that's the whole thing, is that when it's an emergency situation here in the United States, my husband doesn't have health insurance because it's just over the top expensive. And we're farmers, so he didn't have health insurance, but he came down with a very nasty bacteria in his throat. It's that flesh-eating bacteria.
Oh
It's usually
wow.
an external, like limb, that it gets into a cut or a wound.
Right.
But within 4 hours, he was airlifted to the big hospital up in Tucson and coded and was put on life support
Holy
because he
smokes.
had it in the back of his throat. And so, because he had no insurance, the county stepped in because there is county insurance. We didn't get a bill.
Nice.
So, everybody whines and cries and complains that, oh, they get slapped with hundreds and hundreds of $1,000 medical bills where there are programs for
Yeah.
non-insured people. So
Yes. See, I didn't
it
know that.
doesn't make sense.
I'm kind of
Yeah.
naive and ignorant to the aspects of how you guys' healthcare, operates. I always thought you guys paid out of pocket no matter what, but it's good to know that you guys actually have things in place that you can rely on when you're in dire straits, right?
Yeah. I mean, like even some friends came down with COVID and had to be hospitalized. They had no insurance. You apply for the state insurance, the state that you live in. Every state in the United States has state insurance. We were property owners. We actually owned two properties. They own a property and got they got accepted, and their COVID week stay in the hospital was covered. So there's all kinds of programs and grants and federal funding that pick up the slack like that. They all gripe about all the illegals coming over and getting free medical. Well, it's available to us too. You just have to apply for it.
Yeah. See, I think my mentality on that is I don't think we should have borders for anything. That we're all equal individuals, and no one is beneath or higher above the other ones. Like even animals and like insects and mammals and like we're all on the same playing field. But it's because of what we've been taught
Hmm.
with our conditioning mindsets and programming from a very young age that we have to incorporate this. It's me, me, me. It's all about me, and I believe that COVID has released that mentality for short duration, but people have simply forgot the ways of how the human race should actually operate. From a place of love, not fear, and that's why we have so much chaos and we're sucking energy from each other on a global scale, and
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
pretty disgusting. But
it is disgusting. I mean, I was like you. I was like, I mean, we had them. I've owned two properties here in Arizona, other than this one. And, when the illegals would come through 10 years ago, it was different. They were there looking for farm labor jobs. They were working. They were wanting a better life for their family. I've rescued a couple of them in my life because I wouldn't turn away a stray dog. Why would I turn away a stray human?
yeah,
And so, but in the last over 10 years now, it's changed. They're not coming over for work. They are sex trafficking. They are
oh
raping. They
wow,
are hauling drugs in their cartels. I went on a walk one day once we bought this place up here, and I found these packages that were wrapped in brown paper and twine. I'm like, oh wow, cool. Something, some of the I don't know what I thought, but I opened it. It was drugs.
crazy, wow.
Yeah, it was drugs. So of
So it's
course I'm gonna call Border Patrol.
well, yeah. So it's
Of
kind
course
of
I
like a
am.
free for all in the last several years, and yeah,
The wall did help.
shit.
And so, I put my opinion up on Facebook, and a lot of people that have known me for many years are like, what changed in you? That you would go back to you would go to Border Control. You used to take them in and feed them and help them make their connection with their husband or whatever they were trying to get to. And I said, because it's not what's coming across now. The workers come across legally. They come through the gate with the proper paperwork and the cards, and they can go back and forth at their will. It's just the law. But the ones that are coming under the tunnels and are climbing the mountains um, are up to no good.
Yeah, that's
And
not
now
good at all.
every single, yeah. I mean, the girl that I rescued, I still keep in contact with her. I get a Christmas card about every couple of years.
Do you?
She was
Nice.
pregnant. Yeah. And she thought she was coming over, paying this coyote to come over, um, and take her to her husband in New Orleans. Well, it was not that way. It was sex trafficking.
Wow.
And she got away from them. and she found her way to our backyard. And the dogs were going crazy, and my husband brought her in. I mean, she's shredded, her jeans, everything from the barbed wire fences and stuff. Um, and I had someone there that could speak Spanish, and so she interpreted for us. And then the husband interpreted because he spoke English. Yes, I helped her um, because she was trying to escape
Yeah, she wasn't
the
wanting to be a part of that, willingly a part of that outfit, right?
right.
Yeah.
And so, you know, her baby's now her child's now like 10 years old, and they are working productive citizens, and she's applied for citizenship. That's great. I'm not against that. What I'm against is the the sex trafficking and the trafficking of women, and I'm against the crime.
Yeah,
You know,
most definitely. You guys just want to live peacefully, much like I think the majority of people, right? So that's quite an intrusive way of, you know, trying to live out your days. Yeah, we did kind of get derailed there, didn't we, Lori?
sorry about
No,
that.
no, God, no. You know, it's like I said, this is a platform to discuss openly about anything and everything under the sun. I mean, you know, when you speak with any random individual, you're going to go in many different directions, and that's perfectly fine, right? Um, so I did want to mention that it was way back in our early discussion when you said about more or less something that triggered you, like you were doing fine. I believe you were meditating and doing the DBT and different things for a while, but something dramatic, you know, in your life happened that triggered the spiral effect. Could you express like how long that time frame was when you were doing well until you felt like you were crashing again?
It was pretty. I'm still having. It was actually, I go more into the depressive states, um, the super lows, and then out of nowhere, the the rage hit about 3 weeks ago, and it
Oh,
lasted a week,
okay.
and I couldn't understand. Nothing was happening. No, nothing was wrong to have triggered that rage. Um, Waking up and oh God, it was weird. It was probably the first time I really recognized it as a symptom of the mood disorder that, you know, maybe it was because I have had such a hard year. I don't know. All I do know is that I just like started really practicing with my tools, and that was I decided to really look at mindfulness and meditation a lot more serious. The, and yes, I listen to podcasts to go to sleep and that kind of thing. But then um, I just started doing, I mean, I, she uses this tool about making a cup of tea, 36 steps to make a cup of tea.
30,
And
36 steps to
mindfully,
make a tea?
yeah,
All right.
right. I know. And it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard,
Not an actual
but
physical cup of tea, like just, an
in your
affirmation.
brain.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I was like counting the 36 steps, and I couldn't come up with 36 steps to make a tea.
Yeah, definitely
And
not.
so I was kind of like, it was kind of spinning in my head. And I said, okay, it's 1 in the morning. I'm going to get up and physically make a real cup of tea. And I actually counted the steps to finding the proper tea, smelling the proper tea, filling the kettle with water, listening to the flame under the pot, connecting with sounds, smells, the reality in the moment, the mindfulness.
Yeah.
And I actually went over the 36 steps. That was that step getting into the pantry, finding the chamomile tea, um, finding my box of teas and what I had and smelling them all. So it was super. So I had bought a new teacup and I hadn't used it yet. So I felt the cup, looked at the cup, mindfully making a pretty cup of tea. It was cool. It
That
was so
is.
cool.
That's
And
intriguing.
so,
So, sorry, I just wanted to say quickly that that is more or less a technique to keep you in the present moment, focused
mhm,
and channeled with all your energy and intent on that present
mhm,
moment, isn't it? That's ideal. I
yes,
like that.
yes,
I
it
read
was.
about, sorry, go ahead. I'll stop cutting you off because that you're in the middle of a juicy story there. And,
It was an amazing exercise. Like she was going to send me the paperwork or the homework on making the cup of tea. And I had even messaged her and asked for it. Well, she couldn't find it. So I just said, I can do this on my own. And so it was the week that I spiraled, which was like 2, 3 weeks ago. She had me close my eyes and concentrate on my breath and then listen to sounds, connect with my surroundings. And it clicked for the first time in 60
nice.
years. It clicked. Um, you know, um, it, she's been practicing with me to use these distractions. Like another one that she does is to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in your brain, in your mind. If you're spiraling or you're to bring yourself back to the reality, to the moment, just close your eyes and go through the steps of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to distract your thoughts.
Yeah, another way too is simply just to even look at perhaps your palm
Mm.
and just focus on that. Or like anything in life, the simplest form of attention, that actually takes some uh, mindfulness, and that'll pull you out of those rather quickly. And I
Yeah,
really
I'm
feel,
shocked.
yeah,
I've listened to her now for 9 months and I like, okay, whatever, whatever. That's not realistic. That's not realistic. Um, and but since I've been doing it every week, um, and she practices with us, so I had to drive to get a new puppy. I had to go like an hour away, and I've kind of been uh, isolating. And I'm kind of going down our mountain hill, and I have all this anxiety just floods me. Like, oh God, I'm gonna have an accident. Oh God, Um, do I know how to get there? Do I have the GPS set? I was just like overreacting.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, out of nowhere,
Peanut
I
butter and jelly sandwich.
no, I actually used the tools that I was doing. I pushed my foot on the brake, stopped the truck, felt the pressure, closed my eyes, connected with the steering wheel, and my what I smelled, what I was seeing, and I did like the breathing, the inhaling and the exhaling, and I was fine. Like
Perfect.
it worked. It worked. So I was like pretty excited about that. That I guess if you have someone helping you to practice these tools, and then it starts to come a little bit natural.
It
Like
does.
that was it. So, I got worked up one day, overwhelmed, so many things to do, and I felt the anxiety coming, and I'm like, okay, go pop an ashwagandha because I've changed from Xanax to ashwagandha. And I just laid flat on the bed and I just did the connection with grounding. She calls it grounding
Yeah.
your toes and all the way up and softening the body, focusing on the breath. Oh my God, it freaking worked.
Yeah, it does. People don't realize the power that comes with breath work and mindfulness, self awareness. Like, I can contribute pretty much 90% of my success to those simple methods that people usually just scoff at and say woo woo. No, I spend a good hour and a quarter, hour and a half every morning as a ritual to get myself, on on track. And those key factors initiate something in the brain and body to work in a synchronized harmony so that when something does come up that could be disruptive in a negative manner, I can react to it with intelligence, applying the brakes before I just lunge out in ignorance. Like it's mind blowing. And
It
you,
really is. I'm
yeah.
just so freaking like, there's a series on Netflix and it's called Headspace. And it's a Buddhist monk who is
Okay.
teaching, I think he has 6 series on there. Be kind, be present in the moment, and 6 hours. And it's not a movie or anything, it's a meditation. And
Nice.
so
I'll have to look into it, Laurie, for sure.
it's cool. My husband was last night. He's like, "What are you listening to now?" And I'm like, "Look, it put me to sleep. I was able to practice this mindfulness and this meditation to stop the racing thoughts. I think that's the biggest thing I suffer with this is the racing thoughts."
Yeah. I think that the majority of people out there do, but maybe not to the excessive state that these mentalities that have been chiseled to create the coping mechanism of this label, bipolar. Yeah, if people can incorporate, these simple practices, man, they would just be, blown away, with success. And it really only takes, like, I mean, what I do is a little more extreme, but the average individual could just start with a 5-10 minute meditation, and I know what it's like, a lot of people, ones who've been diagnosed ADHD and different things like that, they don't like to be alone with their own thoughts. It's almost like the gnawing negativity that just scratches at them constantly. They're not good enough, or they're just left at in a bottomless pit, so to speak. But when you start to apply the meditation, and I do diaphragm breathing too, that really calms your nervous system tremendously.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to start somewhere. And as I stated before in many podcasts, medication can be a band-aid, but don't solely rely on that to get you through everything, because you're always going to have ups and downs. That's just life in general, right? But
Right.
if you put these into practice, your bumps along the way are going to be a lot less, right? Naturally, um,
Yeah.
no one's
Yeah.
really rooting
It's
for you as
it's
much as you
absolute.
are, right? So,
Yeah. I have been on a supplement and healthy eating journey um, for 3 years now. And so then I started really focusing on my brain health. Like, I focused on my blood sugar health, for got that under control. Now it's making my brain healthy again. Um, like I'm so shocked that I forgot about today because I've been priding myself on getting rid of that brain fog.
yeah,
And uh I don't know. I'm really I have found there's a Dr. Andrew Saul, I believe is his name, and it's called Niacin, the True Story. And I bought a book, and it's about using the flushing niacin D3 for clearing the pathways in the brain and the nervous system and the circulatory system. And he has taken catatonic patients in mental hospitals that are rocking in a corner and they are living normal functional lives.
yeah.
And so I have been doing 3,000 milligrams of niacin B3,
Hmm.
and it's working. It's working. Like, it's amazing. When I first started, I broke out in like blisters all over my chest where my body was detoxing.
Hmm.
And um, the power of supplements, but you have to know what you're doing. You can't just go pop 3,000 milligrams of niacin. You
No,
can't
that's
just
right.
take um, 5-HTP and dopamina and all the L-thiamines and all the magnesiums and not know what you're doing. You really have to understand.
Yeah, you almost have to be an alchemist to formulate, what's going to work for you as an individual, not based
Yeah,
solely on research from other ones. I
right.
was a big advocate for supplements too until I found that it was actually creating the opposite effect that I was hoping it to be, or for it to have. I guess mainly because my liver was so damn shot with everything else that anything else was too intrusive. So I just get my supplement form through solid foods, whole foods, and try to stay
Hmm.
away from sugars and your
Right.
your high levels of sodium and processed garbage. Really, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I just needed something to. I had to. I was not getting enough, even though I grow all my own greens and lettuces and vegetables, and I raise my own turkeys and chickens and pork and lamb. I just something I and I think it was like you hit on it earlier. It was about the discontinuation of meds so abruptly.
Yeah, big time. Now, a question about that. Did you find when I think it would align with both in regards to tapering or abruptly, but did you find with your body detoxing that you were pouring out sweat in night sweats and whatnot? Okay, yeah, because my bed sheets used to be covered, man, and I was like, wow, this is insane. Your body is
Yeah.
is so complex, and we don't even give it credit. Like, there's so many things going on inside on such a minute level to extremes that we're just baffled with. But it was definitely a way of purging those poisons out, and it didn't come without a nuisance and aggravation, of course. But it was nice to see that my body was
The
finally
detox
releasing it.
the detoxing part is the hardest part.
Yeah.
I detoxed so I stopped February 8th of 2020 the mental health meds. And I went into a diarrhea episode for 19 weeks.
Wow.
19 weeks.
Jeez, that was every day, quite consistently, or
Every day,
good
all
God.
day. I had every test known to God because I clearly thought something was wrong.
Same.
Something
Yeah.
had to be wrong. So I had the CT scan, I had the colonoscopy, I had everything. I had the stool samples run. I knew I had gotten into something with the animals because this was not normal. And all the tests came back normal,
Yeah,
exactly
I know, right?
healthy, right?
Yep. Same.
And so that was the biggest detox was my gut. So then I started really focusing on um, healing my gut first.
Big time. Nice.
So I would buy raw milk at the dairy over here, unpasteurized raw milk, and I got some 100-year-old kefir grains, and I fermented my own kefir
Sweet.
and
Excuse me.
um, got a really good probiotic, a really good prebiotic. Completely took out all kinds of high carbohydrate foods again. Almost went carnivore
Yeah.
basically, and I did have to take an amino acid. That's kind of what finally did the trick was I took L-glutamine,
Okay.
and I finally started forming stool again. And so it's like every day is a happy day because I have cleaned my gut. And I really believe that was key.
Big time. Cool.
Um, the
Yeah.
gut was,
Yeah, I've got maybe I'll send a link on the description below too about gut lining and how to repair it. I watched an awesome, I should say, listen to because I'm always flooding around doing things, but a podcast from Tom Bilio on impact theory, all about the microbiome and how important it
yes,
is to repair that. Because you think about the antidepressants, antipsychotics, probably the shitty lifestyles that most of us led on meds, because we're just suppressing everything. But all those impactful agents going into your primary brain, which is your stomach, and ruining those little hairs that as food comes along, they're kind of like antennas to send nutrients out in the appropriate places. But when that's smashed, everything just slides through undetected. And like I'm quite certain, whole food being dispersed through my bloodstream without being filtered through first. So I was getting all the bacteria of everything and just ruining my
Yeah,
gut lining
that
even more,
leaky gut.
right? Yeah, big time.
That leaky gut
Yeah.
I'm so big on that leaky gut, and lectins, like lectins are the poison.
Yeah, they
Do you
are.
know what a lectin is?
They're little
Do you
beans,
know what a
right?
lectin is?
Little peas, beans.
Okay, a lectin is a chemical that the plant produces to protect
To
itself
ward
against
off, yeah,
predators.
yeah. Okay.
So most of it is, as you're said, in your lagoon family. It's lectins are super high in tomatoes and underground vegetables.
Oh, I just lost
So
you.
when I
There
went
we
on
are,
a
Laurie.
lec-
Okay. Sorry, you just zapped
so
out
when
for a
I
bit, but
went
you
on a
came
lectin,
back in.
so when I removed lectins, like I still ate tomato, I just didn't eat the skin. You know, the protective, like everybody, every plant, every person has an immune system response team. The lectins in our plant material are the plant's immune system, basically, to provide for the protection of its seed to recultivate and regrow.
Yeah.
And when I heard Dr. Gundry, I believe it was Dr. Gundry, and his whole series on lectins and healing a leaky gut, because those lectins, you know, they pierce the intestine and the gut walls, and then it's our immune system fights back, and it's like a war going on in our body.
Yeah.
And so when I went lectin free for about 6 months, it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. I have to admit, it was hard. Nightshades is another one, but that was the process I went through with healing my gut. And so now I'm back on some lagoons occasionally, not a lot. I still do skin the tomato, um, just because I know I have a sensitive GI tract, you
Yeah.
know, and I don't want to go back to that feeling of like everything going into my bloodstream and firing at my little soldiers and my immune system.
Yeah, exactly. So, quick question on that note then. Uh, with that gut lining being repaired and being so disastrous from everything that was introduced to it, uh, in terms of medicines, whatnot, did you find that it created what they call a chemical sensitivity issue to
Yeah.
foods and like maybe cleaning products? Because I'm still dealing with that shit, but I guess like 20 years in the making and taking pills and ruining the gut lining with steroids, with booze and drugs, pharmaceutical stuff. It's going to take a long time to ramp that back up. But I'm getting better. Last year, this time, I was a freaking mess. Still, I couldn't be exposed to people's fragrances of, deodorants, colognes, perfumes, cleaning supplies. I'd walk down the aisle of a grocery store that had Tide or Gain or something, laundry detergents, and just be like, oh my god, I can't breathe, and have to run out the damn store. And my hands would turn purple and shit. It was bad. And I solely believe that it has to do with everything I dumped into my system all these
Hmm.
years, wreaking havoc. So, um,
Yeah,
do
I
you,
agree.
yeah, have you ever tried intermittent fasting to rejuvenate the
Oh
gut lining
God,
stuff? Yeah?
that's how I healed myself.
Nice. Same. I've been
I
doing that
mean, oh
forever.
God,
My god.
I
Yeah.
um I had never really, it was about 3 years ago that I started, and I wanted to cleanse my organs, detox my liver, detox my kidneys, my pancreas. And I stumbled across fasting. And actually, the doctor I follow is from Canada, Dr. Fong, Jason Fong.
Okay.
And I got into, I started small with the 12-hour, and then I went to 16-hour. And I'm pretty happy at 18-hour fast daily, still to this day. I do 18-hour fast.
Right on.
I do my electrolytes. I do bone broth. I
Yeah,
mean,
bone broth's a big one for me
um,
too.
yeah, so I don't I did two extended fasts And that's what really, really pushed me over the top
Mm-hmm.
for the diabetes and for
Yeah,
the
right.
gut was I did a 10-day
Ooh,
fast.
shit.
Like, what a talk about intense. Oh my
Yeah.
God, the euphoria that came with it was like better than anything I've ever experienced.
Love it.
There's a whole thing on refeeding and reintroducing foods to the digestive system. Um, so I totally thrive on fasting. I mean, I do really, really well. And so it just blows my mind that for 10 years I listened to the ADA, American Diabetic Association, went to countless nutritionalists that eat every 2 hours,
Yeah, right.
carry a snack in your purse, carry these glucose tablets in your purse,
Yeah,
da 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 da. You know what? I have figured out all of that is designed to keep you insulin dependent.
of course it is. And I've had the same thing called hypoglycemia. You know,
Oh,
I worked for a company.
that's a
Yeah,
precursor
it
to
is.
diabetes.
I worked for a company years past, and I always found myself run down and rugged. Like we worked 60 plus hours a week most weeks, and it was just too vigorous on the body, and I wasn't replenishing with electrolytes. I didn't understand everything back then. I was all about bodybuilding, but I didn't know about the microbiome. Never even heard of it, gut flora, you know, and all this other stuff. And my doctor's like, "Oh, just get these glucose capsules you can buy at the grocery store and pop
Right,
those when you need them." So yeah, it makes you dependent on that shit, and it's the same thing with pharmaceutical drugs. The industry
right.
is simply there to make money off the backs of these poor individuals and tell them these bullshit stories that this is what you need, or you're going to become sick. Yeah, you will from anything that you abruptly stop or taper from for the moment, but think about the long viewpoint that's ahead, you know, with clarity of mind and functioning, that you don't have to solely rely on this stuff anymore to get through, you know, an aggravation of a day or what have you. You know, we've been fed lies for so many
Oh,
years. My God, it's sickening.
you have no idea. They had me. Okay. Do you know anything about A1Cs, the blood sugars?
A1C's, not really. I'm not gonna lie, right?
A1C
Yeah.
is A1C is your continuous blood sugar count.
Okay.
So a normal person should be around 4.5 to 4.6. Pre-diabetic, your A1C is probably around
6 or 7.
5.7,
Yeah.
6.5. And the ADA has accepted that 6.5 is a normal A1C. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Not quite.
My A1C graduated between 13.5 to 16 every 3 months.
Mm.
What they would do is they would increase the insulin. So I was giving myself shots before every food, any meal. And then you take nighttime insulin. And it was just like this joke. And so it got to the point where nothing was working. And so they said, well, we want to give you a gastric bypass surgery.
Good
We want to
God.
cut out 80% of your stomach. So I went for a year to a doctor every month. I went to a nutritionalist. You had to lose 50 pounds to prove to the insurance you could have the surgery, yada, yada, yada. And I did the 50 pounds. I flunked the psych eval, basically. She said I had to go back and get on my bipolar meds
Mm-hmm.
before she would approve me for the bypass.
Jeez.
And it was a week before my surgery. And I thought, dang it, I can't do this. I can't have them cut out 80% of my stomach to make it the size of a nut. Like, that's going to lead to malnutrition and no, 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 no. And I'm like, no, no, no. I canceled my appointment and I dove into fasting and
Nice.
into eating whole foods, healthy whole foods. I learned what oils my body needed, what fats. And yes, I did get on the keto train. I did.
I did for a minute
Um,
too. Yeah.
it did help me. You know, I do see some negatives with being in ketosis all the time. I think it really triggered a lot of my insomnia
Hmm.
being in ketosis. So I found a level. I can go into ketosis for like a 24-hour fast and then stay in an even more of an even keel. I found a really healthy balance for my body.
Yeah.
Um, but the doctors, how they push more meds and more meds and more meds. Okay, I have counted some people on bipolar. They're on 4 or 5 meds, one to wake up,
Yep.
one to calm down, one to keep your mood stable. Like some of them are taking like 6.
That's disgusting.
Holy crap.
I remember
You
going
know,
to the pharmacy and waiting in line, and there was a bigger lineup at the pharmaceutical counter than it was for people bringing in groceries. And we were walking out with doggy bags full of pills and going, this is insanity. Like something isn't right here. And again,
it's not right. I had
no,
18 prescriptions.
good God.
18 when 10 years ago with the insulins and this and that and the other thing. 18 freaking pills. Now, I didn't just ditch all of it all at one time. It took me a process of like 3 years. I'm going to plug my phone in to
Hmm.
get off of all of that crap. Um, and the I went in to get some because the diabetes and the meds really my feet took a real whacking from that crap
Hmm.
and from such high blood sugars for so many years. Um, and putting synthetic insulin in my body. So
Yeah.
I still wear a brace and I went in to get some more inserts made. And I saw the big MD doctor, and he says, "Well, you're not diabetic." I said, "What do you mean I'm not diabetic?" And he said, "Well, your A1C was 4.5." And I said, "No, I'm a reverse diabetic. I'm a controlled diabetic." He says, "You can't control it. You
Hmm.
can't reverse it." I said, "Oh, really?" I said,
Yeah.
um, "This particular doctor doesn't do computers, so he just had a paper in front of him, my last labs."
Hmm.
And I said, "Doc," I said, "let me go get you my file. I carry my labs in a file um, when I go see the doctor because we're country rural and he doesn't do the computer."
Yeah.
So I went and got like 4 years of labs. I said, "Look at these labs, 13.5, 16.2."
Jeez.
He says, "You can't go from this A1C to a 4.5. You can't, Laurie."
Probably just
And
boggled his mind too, right?
I said, "I did." And he said, "Well, then will you take A1C right now?
Hmm.
Right now. No, you know." I said, "Absolutely." Because I was in I usually am an 18-hour faster daily. So he called me in the next week and he said, "I need you to come and talk to me." He says, "What the hell did you do? What did you do? Your A1C is 4.6. That's normal." And I said, "I used fasting. It's the ADA is teaching people to eat every 2 hours because they're so worried about a hypoglycemic reaction
Hmm.
to blood sugars dropping low, which that is very serious. That's very serious, when you have the hyper lows. And yes, you can get into trouble, but you can bone broth,
Yeah.
with a little bit of heavy cream in it, that
Yep.
the fat to keep your blood sugar and the electrolytes so you can keep it stable.
Hmm.
You don't have to shove glucose tablets down your mouth. You don't have to have hard candy. I mean, sugar is poison.
Big time. It's breaking us down in so many ways that people aren't even fully aware of. But it's funny that these doctors, and I get it. They're not trained specialists in nutrition and how to repair
They
the
are
gut
not.
lining and flora and stuff. And it's unfortunate, because I've spoken to many and they're like, "Fuck, Matt, how do you know how to do this, man?" I'm like, "Buddy, man, I've had nothing but time on my hands, and all the years of suffering. So I would sit and I would read for 12, 14 hours a day, research to find out what was going to work for me, regardless of what the scientific research was behind the pharmaceutical perspective and viewpoints. And I did the same. Like I fasted for 15, 16 hours, but at that point, it wasn't by choice. I wasn't able to hold food down. All I could do was drink water to replenish, the loss because the kidneys weren't filtering things out, and I was just like dried right out. But I told him about a turmeric drink that I came across on YouTube.
Oh, I love turmeric.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it too, right? And I'll post that on the link as well, video plus my own recipe that this guy doesn't mention the black pepper, which helps the turmeric bind to the
Oh
body.
God, yeah.
300%, yeah. But
Activates.
I
Yeah.
told, yeah, I told the doctors about this, and they're like, "Holy smokes! Okay, well, how'd you know how to do that?" And I said, "Again, man, like I dove into my own
Education.
health." Well, yeah, exactly. But the day that I found that on YouTube was the day I came into the hospital, and they took me by ambulance with a pressure of 192 over 100 something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was pretty high, and I was blacking out. I had neuropathy issues. I was falling all over the place. It was a scary time for me, and they sent me home and said, "Don't hesitate to come back in case you feel there's something more we can offer. Right now we don't have anything," because everything was checking out fine besides the blood pressure. They couldn't find the root reason behind that. I actually thought I was overdosing on my medications at that point. And so I went home and I told my wife, I was like, "You know what, babe?" I said, "I can't do this anymore. If I don't find a solution today after struggling all this time, hours upon hours, weeks and months, turn into years, I'm going to end it. I can't bloody well do this," right? Just sickened to death with it. And at that point, I had no one to rely on. Didn't know of any other people at that point who had bipolar besides, YouTube, and it was
Yeah, because
just,
they keep it so secret.
oh, big time, right? They don't want you to get better. That's the key factor here. But anyways, I found this YouTube video that was channeling on the side, that rabbit hole where they always get you. And this guy was talking about turmeric, and I was like, what do I have to lose? And I'm one of those guys that likes to get to the point quickly, so I just forward through his video. I was like, "What the hell is it? Let's do it right now." So I went out that afternoon and bought all the ingredients and started
You
mowing
make
down.
the So do you make the paste, the golden paste?
No, no, it was an actual drink. It's a whole lemon with the rind included, black pepper, the turmeric, the ginger, clove of garlic. I believe I had at that point in time apple cider vinegar. Um, what else did I add? I think a pinch of salt too to help with the electrolytes. But I was consuming that on the morning every day
Awesome.
for
Yeah,
like three
I would
years.
love that because
Yeah.
I have read about using the turmeric as a golden milk,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yep. Yep.
Um and so I use turmeric. I buy it by the pound and I make a paste with it with black pepper and put it in my cooking, but I also like just take a teaspoon of it. It's like a ghee.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
I just it really helped the inflammation in my body.
Yeah. I know all about that firsthand. Yeah.
But I
Uh,
have seen some people talking about the drink, with
mm-hmm.
turmeric. And I just, I'm really at just a oh my gosh, like I do my apple cider vinegar and fresh lemon in my water. I just started on this last week. I've started using a high alkaline water.
Nice.
Where my neighbor bought a filter for uh a higher OPT, and I can't talk too much about that because I just started researching it.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what, this high alkaline water. Now, if you have kidney issues,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably not a good thing. I don't have kidney issues, but she brought me 3 gallons of this water she's brewed, and I had to stop because I was urinating every 5 minutes. I'm like, wow,
From the
this is
alkalization,
huge.
or is it because it was overconsumption?
No, I drink half my body weight every day and
Mm-hmm.
have half my body weight in ounces for the last 3 years. So I drink 4 quarts of water a day. That is across the board. 3 years, I use a quart jar and I drink four of them a day.
I get those too. Mason jar is what we call them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, so I just changed from my well water, which is a pH of about 8.2, you know. So all I did was change and drink her high alkaline water,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like peeing every 5 minutes, and I said, "Oh my God, this is awful," but it felt good because my body was detoxing yet again.
Exactly. Yep.
Yet again. And so I did take a break on Tuesday, but I've drank it all day Monday, Wednesday, and now today. So she keeps telling me once you get past the detoxing, it goes back to normal. So I'm
Okay.
just praying that that's what
Yeah.
happens. So yeah, the alkaline water is new. The filters are expensive. They're like $3,000.
Oh shit. Okay. Well,
You know,
I got a cheaper method, and it's not to alkalize per se, but
really?
yeah. Have you ever heard of sun infusion water?
Say that again?
Sun infusion water.
No.
Basically, what you have there is what I have on my windowsill downstairs. I put up 10 mason jars and cap them off and let them sit in the sun for 3 to 5 hours so that it
Mm-hmm.
kills all the bacteria. And our water is from a spring-fed housing unit here in town, which is great. But I'm sure that they got a system implemented that just pumps out the damn fluoride, and I'm totally against that shit.
Yeah.
I don't use toothpaste, all natural products, home-based homemade a lot. And what I find is with the sun infused water, drinking that on the daily, I feel rejuvenated, energized. The list just goes on with benefits. And
Wow, I'm really
yeah,
amazed. I'm really amazed because I mean, I grow hydroponically, so I know a
hmm,
lot about pHs and parts per millions and,
yep,
you know, oxidation and ORP. That's the number. So the
okay,
ORP is not something that I had studied for hydroponics. Um, and so I just have the cheap meters
hmm,
that I test, so I know what the pH is and everything.
yeah,
I didn't know much about ORP. That's the oxidated contaminant levels.
okay,
And so she bought these expensive ORP meter and pH meter. So I said, well, I'm not going to buy a unit. The used units you can pick up for like 5 or 600.
hmm,
And I said, I'm not going to buy the unit until I see what your meter readings are.
yeah, really though,
I want to know the ORPs, the part per million, and the pH levels.
hmm,
So she got them yesterday, and she texted me. Well, I guess that her machine needs to be factory cleaned because it's not changing it. But it did the ORP level of our well. We're on the same aquifer. Um, we're on the PRP. The ORP level was 91 on our well water, and the machine was 513.
oh, jeez,
So I am curious because we don't have fluoride, we don't have contaminants in our water. We are in mining country, so we have high mineral, very high mineral count in our water, which doesn't bother me because it's from the ground.
yeah,
We're so old school here, Matt, that we use a windmill to bring the water up.
hell
Like,
yeah. I think it should be that way, to be honest, right? Old
right, we
school's the
are
way to
on
be.
complete. We are not tied to the grid. We are off
Oh
grid.
wow, I love
We
it.
have solar, and so it's I'm living very simple and very basic, like but I will have to say there's something different with this high alkaline water, and I will try that sun water. I will really look
Yeah,
forward to seeing that link
sure.
because I
Yeah.
really don't want to spend $600 for a freaking.
Yeah, well, that's my point. If you could test the sun-infused water just to back that up, I mean, I'm a firm believer in intent. Like you know how people say about blessing your food. Well, it's not just like having prayer to the Creator, the divine cosmos, what have you, but it's simply more or less of how you feel at that exact moment when you're introducing food and you're consuming it and it's being ingested and digested. Like if you're in a negative place in your mindset, that food is going to have a negative effect on you. Much like how
Yeah.
you probably heard like LSD. Like if you're in a bad mood or some shit's going on in your life, you take a couple of hits of acid, you're going to have a bad trip. The same thing goes with food. But
So it's funny, like a lot of people that I've met through bipolar, and that's just recently, like I guess I joined that group a month ago.
yeah, I've only been
I,
on it for a
wa-
little while too.
I wanted to see, you know, when she told me 10 years ago that she didn't think that it was depression and that's why nothing was working. She thought it was bipolar. I
Excuse me.
freaked. I really did. I freaked. And I put my head in the sand, took the medicine, kind of walked through 7 years of grief as a zombie, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. But now that I've connected with other people with different levels of bipolar, I can really look back and see that, I had multiple jobs. I never got into the drug thing. I mean, yeah, I tried um, cocaine in the 80s. I, but I never liked that racy heart. I never liked being hyper. So it wasn't something that I did. I could never smoke marijuana, um, but I like the edibles. Now we're legal, so now it's okay.
Yeah.
But the only thing I ever did in my life was mushrooms. Oh
Yes,
my
right?
God.
Dogs go after mushrooms, so that's got to tell us there's some beneficial
Yes.
side effects to that. They're treating it for depression, bipolar, and other mental illnesses too today,
Yeah.
like
So,
anxiety and stuff. So yeah,
yeah. So I didn't do a lot of damage to my body, like with drugs. I mean, illegal drugs or whatever you call them. But I did with prescriptions. Like, so
yeah, same.
mine were legal. But if I go back, I've been on different SSRIs since my 30s.
Yep.
That's 30 years of that crap. And it's like it shouldn't be this way. It's like the foods. Okay, I can remember standing in the oil aisle at the grocery store. Heart health, da 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 da. What the hell oil do you use?
Yeah, from what I've read and researched, I use avocado oil because everything
Yeah,
else is just saturated garbage and it's just going to
yeah.
poison you, destroy your
It,
cells. Yeah.
it's so manufactured and so hydro. So I started researching one topic: oil. What oil is best for the human body? Well, it comes to be coconut, avocado, and olive.
Yep.
So um, I I'll never forget when I was first going down this discovery path. I had corn oil and vegetable oil for baking. And I guess my husband found one of them in the cupboards and he was frying some potatoes. And I saw him pour that corn oil in, that hydrogenated oil.
Yep.
And I absolutely had a meltdown. Thought I was going to freaking die. Like, you can't. I poured the whole pan out and I just, like, where did you find this? And he said, in the back of the cupboard. I said, no more, Barney, no more. No more hydrogenated fats.
Yeah.
They're manufactured, they're chemicals, but you go in the oil aisle and if you read the labels, they tell you that this one's healthy for the heart. Well, it's just a hydrogenated man-made
Poison. Yep.
petroleum product. You
Yeah,
know, so
petroleums are really bad, right?
so the freaking food industry, they're killing us.
Yeah.
The soy is messing with all the woman's hormones.
Yep, big time. And
you
even
know,
men for that matter, like it lowers your
the G,
testosterone.
yeah, the GMOs. I mean, it's just like they're
Glyphosates. Yeah.
poisoning us. And
Yeah.
so it's been 5 years that I removed myself from the mainstream um, food industry, and um, I was with a friend and we went into Circle K and we're trying to help her. She has ADD and she's bipolar, but she won't admit it. So she saw the donuts and I'm trying to get her on a no sugar. And she grabbed a great big old maple bar and
Uh,
she'd been off sugar for a couple of weeks. I didn't say anything because it's not my job, you know. She did say, "Don't judge me. I just got to have a donut." We know she inhaled that donut. We get into the grocery store and she says, "Oh my God, my knees are hurting
yeah.
again."
Instantaneously, you feel the effects of it.
And she goes, "Well, it happened that fast." I said, "Susie, I shouldn't say her name, but you can't eat that sugar, honey."
No.
And so it was that moment that she connected the dots. She ate a donut. 30 minutes later,
Yeah.
she was in crippling pain in her knees. Yeah, was I perfect over the holidays? No, I wasn't. I did some baking and I didn't use my monk fruit or my honey, good healthy sugars. I went ahead and just baked the old fashioned way. And I went to get her, we went somewhere and I was limping. She goes, "Oh my God, you're limping again." I said, "Yeah, it's the sugar." It's like I can
Yep.
clearly see a change in my inflammation and
Big time.
arthritis if I
Yeah.
put sugar or anything with fructose corn
Artificial.
syrup.
Yeah. All those toasts,
Hmm.
basically. See, I was diagnosed with AS, and that's a form of arthritis. It's called ankylosing spondylitis, and you end up having very rigid joints. Things start breaking down. You get the stoop neck, if you allow it to go that far. And I was on a Humira medicine for that, and that was killing me. And I had a doctor as a client, and he said, "Matt, it's a good thing you got off that shit because that was killing you from the inside out." I was like, "Oh yeah," you know, all within a matter of, I think maybe 3.5, 4 years I was on that. Everything was deteriorating. So as you're speaking of, the sugars and whatnot, I don't uh, I don't need a long, expansive time frame to determine if something's poisonous to me or not. It's like that,
Right.
instantaneously, within seconds. It used to be minutes, and now I've got myself so attuned, man. Like I can feel and go, what the hell is in that, man? Like if it was store bought or homemade. I always ask people, like, what do you put in your foods, man? Because it's detrimental to my health if it's a poison. And people don't make that connection too with food and their moods. I've got a son who was diagnosed ADHD, and I took him off meds because I thought, if I'm going to go down this road of non-compliancy to that pharmaceutical bunch, then why should my kid be exposed to this? So I'll rip him off it too. He tapered and he's doing fine. No one noticed the difference being medicated or not. But the foods, instantaneously, with gluten, sugars, those fructose, all those damn sugars, man. He is just a complete nuisance to everything around him. And, like, those are key factors for people to keep in mind on the daily, to stay clear of that shit if you've been diagnosed with something, because that interacts with you in such a negative manner, man. Like, I get angry when I'm around sugar, or if I consume too much, I get moody as fuck, right? And I just want to, like, get pissy with people, and I'm going, okay, okay. But now I've connected the dots and realized that that is
It
the
is
sole reason.
so
Yeah.
it's so crazy. I had a good friend of mine posted pictures on Facebook the other day of chocolate. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like it triggered me. Like she had chocolate mousse and she had chocolate cake and chocolate candies. Oh my God. I was like, I haven't had chocolate in a long time. And I have the real 100% cacao. I could make something chocolate,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a process to make it healthy for my body.
Yeah.
And so I freaking focused on that chocolate cake image in my head. And I finally called my husband and I said, "On your way home from work tonight, would you stop by the bakery and see if they have anything chocolate? And he's like, are you sure? And I said, so he called me. He goes, yeah, they have a beautiful chocolate cake. I said, bring home a piece. He brought home two pieces. And I I really mindfully ate like half of that piece one day. I woke up the next morning and I felt like shit.
Big time.
I felt like shit. But did that stop me? No, I ate the other half that evening. And then I was like, why are you sabotaging? Why are you sabotaging? You're So I called her and I said, what is that cake? How do you make it? Are you making it from a cake mix or from, a scratch? She says, no, Laurie, it's just a cake mix.
Oh God. Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I threw the other piece in the trash. I
Good on you.
absolutely said, no, I've been making chocolate cakes with almond flour and coconut oil and cacao. And I buy raw cream over at the dairy and make the frosting. And I use monk fruit or I grew stevia last year. That was
Wow.
awesome.
Nice.
If you want the stevia leaves,
Mm-hmm.
I just put it in a little pumpus thing and crush it and put it in nice iced tea.
Okay.
And that was phenomenal. No reaction, no blood sugar spiking.
Yeah.
But we all want a little sweet.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to steer clear entirely of that stuff.
It is.
You know what I find? I smoke weed at night to help me sleep. And I like the high
Smart.
too, I'm not going to lie. Right? Being a heavy drinker, reformed alcoholic, that was my go to. And it wasn't to suppress, maybe it was, maybe I'm lying to myself and us right now, but I felt like it was something to look forward to at the end of the day. And it became a very ritual habit to the point where it was like 2 bottles a night. And as I was suffering, I was like, okay, I've got to make a conscious decision here for my better health and probably the well-being of my family and this relationship with my wife. So I knocked it off cold turkey, and it's just been over 2 years. But I was getting bored with the mundane routine of doing everything, trying to enjoy life on the smallest scale. But I was like, I got to have something for bed because I don't sleep well.
Right.
I tried different routines, different times, blah, blah, blah. Nothing made a difference. So I get on the weed again. And that just brings you to the most present moment in a heartbeat. But if I don't consume a tea before bed, while I'm laying in bed with my wife watching a show, I start craving sugars. And those are hardwired programmings that we've all been introduced to from a very young age again. And I'll visualize chocolate or candy or cereal, something, man, that's just got to get the taste bud snap. And it's tough for me. I go probably about 5, 6 days, and I have to indulge just slightly on something. But on a coherent, sober note is when I want to dive into that. Otherwise, it's just mayhem. I'll devour everything, right? So it's a
Yeah,
tough one.
it's the struggle is real.
Yeah.
And it's like for me, when I was detoxing from sugar, refined sugar, I took whole organic almonds and
Mm-hmm.
I made a glaze with monk fruit and cinnamon. And so then I would roast them with that glaze.
Right.
And it gave me like I could have a 3 ounce snack of cinnamon glazed almonds.
Oh wow.
And it was just, so I keep a jar of those for normally that's how I handle a situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but those images of that cake, it really tripped me up.
Yeah. It's
And
tough.
I just, I wish I could do marijuana. I really do. I wish I could. I can't smoke it. It's just, for some reason, it just doesn't um, fit well with me. So I have this gal coming up because I have a hydroponic greenhouse and she wants me to start growing.
Hmm.
and we're going to make a butter,
Okay.
um, a ghee type infused butter with the THC.
Hmm.
And she used to make this up in Oregon, so that I can use it as a bakery product, like
Nice.
something like that.
Yeah.
When I was in California last year, my daughter bought me some edibles for sleep, and they had all the right ingredients as far as not the refined sugars and stuff, and it really helped. It
Big
really
time,
helped.
right? You know,
But it's so expensive to
well, it is.
buy the edibles here.
Yeah, I think it's like for me, when I first started smoking weed again, I decided, I'll try an edible, not knowing how it was going to affect me because it's been a lot of years. But I took like, I think two one night, and I believe they were like $3 or $4 a piece, and then smoked a joint too, and I was train wrecked the next day, just totally out of it. My body was just like heavy, and that's what I find with edibles if you're consuming in large quantities. But maybe perhaps why they don't work for you is, are you familiar with indica and sativa, like the different strains? And maybe that could
Yeah.
be the contributor to why it doesn't, you know.
Yeah, I have just started. This gal has been teaching me about the sativas and the indicas and what strain. And I am like, I have a reverse reaction to alcohol.
Okay.
Like most people, they put them to sleep, or not me. Keeps me up. If I have even one glass of wine,
Hmm.
I'm up all night.
Yeah.
It
See.
it is not a depressant for me. It is
Yeah.
a hyper stimulating
Yeah.
thing. Like,
Yeah. That's what I found too. I would drink if I would drink past 6 o'clock in the evening. I was a mess. I wasn't getting any sleep at all. But you work all day and you have a meal. I mean, how could you not drink around that hour, anyways? So that that's what ruined my
I
sleeping
miss
habits.
wine. I miss wine. I really do. I love wine, but I can't drink it because um I just it just I get when your body gets sick from alcohol. Like if I had a drink, two drinks, three drinks,
Yeah.
I'm sick for three
Yeah.
days.
Same.
So it's like it finally got to the point where, do I want to have fun and go dancing and da 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 da, or do I want to be sick? I connected the alcohol with being sick. The same with sugar. Do I want to be feeling good tomorrow and
Yeah.
get out in the garden, or do I want to be sick?
Excuse me.
You know,
Exactly. Yeah, you got to
um,
weigh out the pros and cons to everything you introduced to your body. Is it worth it? And if so, realizing it's only temporary, I'd rather feel good for the long term and the long haul. So I try to avoid, those trips. So
yeah, it's just really, we are what we eat, you
yeah,
know?
we truly are. Yeah.
I, and then you go play this head game with yourself. Well, there wouldn't be all this shit food in the store if it wasn't good for us.
Yeah.
But when you really start
Yeah.
dissecting what's in that food,
Hmm.
the colorings, and that is huge for
Oh, big time.
ADD,
Yep.
for
Big time.
attention deficit disorders, colorings and flavorings and caramels and all that shit. Oh my God. I was with my grandchildren last year helping my daughter, and I just kind of like, she's really good about feeding them healthy whole foods. And then we went to a play group and they had Kool-Aid.
Hmm. Oh, nightmare. I can already see it.
My 4-year-old granddaughter was popping off the
Yeah.
walls, and you know, my daughter's like, "What is going on?" And I said, "Honey, I think it was the red Kool-Aid."
Hmm.
I mean, it stained her little lips, and um, I've been kind of a health geek person, even raising my 4 children. I remember I was a big juicer back then, and I would order carrots by the 30-pound sack, and I would
Nice.
juice all kinds of vegetables because I couldn't get enough vegetables in them. And the school nurse called me in one day, and she had all four of my children in the nurse's office. And she says, Laurie, what are you feeding these children? The whites of their eyes are orange, their hands are orange.
Too much carotene. Yeah.
So the kids tease me like, "Oh yeah, mom, you want us to eat this and not eat that. You gonna turn us orange again?" Like they didn't forget, you
Yeah,
know.
definitely.
But it is really, and I just wish I could do it in balance. I think that's what the tools of the
Yeah.
DBT have done for me. Is it's helped me to like, okay, don't get all wacky about the the alkaline water. Don't get all
Hmm.
wacky about this. Keep it in balance. And
Yeah.
maybe that I'm asking myself an impossible thing to do.
No, not at all. Moderation is key so that all aspects of your life almost fit like a gridlock. And, the way I look at it is if you don't have moderation on any given aspect of your life, what happens is you start to spiral, you run rampant, and then you disperse too much energy in so many multiple directions that your tank is empty. So then you didn't
Mm-hmm.
accomplish anything. It's sole benefit to just moderate everything. Anything that's overconsumption, even in the purest form, is going to create negative issues for the individual,
Right.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
big time.
So
Yeah.
my goal this year is balance. It's like not getting like, okay, so I did have some chocolate cake. Wow, it's not the end of the
Yeah.
freaking world.
Nope.
Don't beat yourself up about it. Don't shame yourself. Don't let it cause a tornado. That's what I've learned in therapy, that I can take little things, little behaviors, and create a freaking chaos tornado.
Yep.
Tornado.
Each and every one of
And
us can do that if we allow it. Yeah.
it's all a fact of life. And so it's like, no, just get back up and tomorrow make better decisions. Today, make better decisions.
Hmm.
Today, I'm on a fast until dinner time. I'm
Yeah.
kind of finding my way back to that 24-hour slot.
Hmm.
Um, because that sure, when I dumped the meds in February of last year, I dropped 10 to 15 pounds,
Hmm.
but the 40 is still hanging on. It's
Yeah.
still hanging on. I'm going to have to get aggressive about it again. So the
Yeah.
only way that I know how to get aggressive is to choose the right foods and fast.
Yeah. Definitely. So, I mean, we're running a little longer than expected, and that's perfectly fine. But before we do kick off here, Laura, I'd just like to tie off one with you quickly on your input on where you think that the bipolar and any mental illness actually stems from. Like, what's your own personal projection of thought on that matter?
Oh, that's a hard one. I see a genetic link. I do. As much as I hate to admit it, I see a genetic link. Both my parents um, were alcoholics and they self-medicated with alcohol. And they didn't do things they didn't do things in a balanced way. So is it genetic? Maybe. So I wasn't an alcoholic, I wasn't a drugger. But I know parents gave me a fabulous childhood. I didn't have any childhood trauma. There was no abuse, there was no nothing. They gave me a great childhood. They did the best that they could. Did they make some mistakes? Yeah, they made a few mistakes,
Naturally.
Life happens. I used to judge them very harshly because there was a divorce and a stepmother and stepbrother situations. And then, I judged my mother very harshly until my first divorce. Oh, wow. I was 40 and I was like, shit, this
Yeah.
happened to me now.
Realizing those charted waters are now familiar to you and what your mother went
Yeah.
through.
And
Yeah.
so I came clean with my mom and it was like, God, I was so judgy. I was so like, I don't know. I just really wanted my family to um, stay together forever. I didn't want there to be a divorce, and there was.
Yeah.
And uh, I got so I think trauma. I can go back and say that um, the trauma situations in my life, a husband that was a drug addict, got clean, got sober for 10 years, lived great 10 years. Then his addiction changed to adultery.
Ah,
And I removed myself from that situation because that was something I couldn't handle.
right.
And, but I can see at different points in my life that it was trauma that would trigger the imbalance of my emotions. And
Okay.
I wasn't in tune with my emotions.
Nice. So I'm going to tackle that for a quick minute. As I mentioned in another podcast, I always make reference points. The Gabor Mate's book, When the Body Says No, and also Bessel van der Kolk's book, When the Body Keeps a Score, are tying together, stating that we do suppress as individuals for so long, and eventually those suppressions that we keep locked in ourselves come out in different manners, whether it be mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. And I feel that, tied in with that also isn't just solely from that individual, but the baggage we carry from our ancestors, from our parents, our grandparents. And if you're familiar with the idea of water containing memory and those cells dripping and derived into your essence of being, you hold those traumatic experiences that your parents have gone through, your grandparents, and so forth. So without doing the shadow work and integrating that into your overall well-being, you suppress it for so long, and it's kind of like a bubbling pot of water.
Yeah.
It's going to explode eventually. And so for us, we have this diagnosing, this damn bipolar. For other people, it might be arthritic issues, which we both have too. It could be ADHD. I mean, there's a mountain of spectrums of disorders that can be tossed in the bag. So from what I think and feel, I think that's where things stem from. The root cause of these
Right.
diseases is simply putting it on the back burner and saying, I'll deal with that later. I can't handle it right now. It's too much. But you just keep
Right.
packing it in. Yeah.
I totally agree. Because I was, it was interesting because in therapy, she was constantly leading us back to childhood trauma. I'm like, dude, I had a great childhood. I great father. I have a great interactive with my mother. I mean, we had a great life.
But do you
We
realize
had,
too, Laurie, that 50% of our memories are actually shattered? Like we think we have it all locked in our brains, but the actual reality of our memories are only 50% correct. That's kind of a scary
yeah,
thought, isn't it?
it is
Yeah.
scary. And so I started like, she took us back through this 9 months. She took us back through some childhood trauma stuff. And I couldn't relate. I was like, no, I was not hit. I was not sexually molested. I was not, we had a very routine, normal, I was a one girl and five boys. But then she had me dig a little deeper because I'm a perfectionist. And
Same.
my perfectionism is really what gets in the way. And so we were diving into where my perfectionism stemmed from. And it dawned on me like I had a stepmother who was a perfectionist, and she did abuse me emotionally with behaviors, like dishes. If she found something on the glass, a spot on the glass, she would make me rewash all the glasses.
Yes. That criticism that can really break a spirit.
The
Yeah.
criticism. And so I went back into my childhood memory, and that shit popped up. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And if I was to be completely honest, to this day, like if I vacuum and I don't move all the furniture and vacuum under everything and every nook and cranny, I get all weird. And I'm like, wait a minute. She used to hide a piece of paper under a chair.
To see if you
And if
vacuum
I said
there.
I was done, yeah, if I was done cleaning the house and she went back and found that paper, I had to redo
Redo it.
everything.
I had a stepfather that had that same mentality. It was almost like military school, if you will. You
Yes.
know, everything had to
Mm-hmm.
be perfect and everything had order, and if it wasn't, like, I understand the importance of having order in the mindset because then typically your life does too. But when you start parading and showering undeveloped youth with that kind of mentality, it doesn't allow them to grow. They just feel like they're gonna have to buckle down and they're pinned down to
Yeah.
the, you know what I mean?
It
Like
was,
that's just
it
so
was so
freaking cruel.
interesting. It was so interesting that she brought up back a memory. And so everything had to be folded in a certain way in my drawers. All my clothes had to be folded a certain way. I think I was like 15 or 16. And my mom, my birth mom, was at Christmas at our house, and she was helping me put away my new clothes. And, she opened my drawers and she's like, "Oh my God, like, what is this? It's like obsessed with everything folded a certain way." I said, "Well, that's the way it has to be, Mom. Jean won't let me have it any other way." And I said, "But look at this." So I had all the pink shirts together, all the white shirts together. But look, this one's inside out. I was rebelling by simply hanging one shirt. It was still with the whites, but it was inside out.
Yeah, just so that
So
you
that
had
was,
something to hold on to of your own identity, right?
yeah, it
Yeah,
is
what a sin.
crazy how my therapist led me back to my childhood, um, the damage that was done by that stepmother for perfectionism. And I'm literally a all or nothing girl. Either I do it perfect or I won't do it at
Yeah,
all.
I know that
If I
all too
can't,
well.
yeah, like the windows are driving me crazy. But to, for me to clean windows, I have this process, vinegar, and then I have a process with what kind of cloth I use, and then I have to wax them, and it's like they have to be like perfect.
You know what? I'll tell you, Laurie, I was the same way right up until probably when COVID started. You know, like I'd work 6 days a week, and I would, on the seventh day, I would clean the house from top to bottom, take our two vehicles, vacuum them out, wipe them all down. Like it was ridiculous. Now that I look back, I know what the hell was I trying to accomplish? You know, trying to get that acceptance, if you will, right? Even though that parent is no longer there tending over you and looking over your shoulder to make sure you're doing things right. But it wasn't until COVID started and I was like, man, that's just a bloody waste of time. Do you know how much energy we focus on maintaining cleanliness to that degree like that? I'm not saying that you shouldn't clean your home. I mean, God, for sake, you
Yeah,
gotta you
no,
gotta be
but
tidy. But
the
this is extreme.
OCD,
Yeah,
that
right.
OCD of, that freaking war in my head. Well, I'm not washing windows because I will spend all day waxing and glassing these windows. And then I get overwhelmed and frustrated because, and so then I said, "You know what? I bought these Norex rags where you just use water and a glass cloth. Just do it. Just do it. Don't get out the vinegar. Don't get out this. Don't get out the wax. Just do it like smudge, like do it." I was perfectly happy. I didn't have to look at the puppies' noses on the glass door.
Yeah,
Um, and I'm starting to give myself a break.
yeah, you
You
need
know,
that, right?
you can't, um, like this last month, I have let things go because I'm the perfectionist. And it's like, so I called in a housekeeper to come up and help me get back on track, get back to my routines, you know, because if I routinely do like the housework every day, like I divided it up into zones and it doesn't overwhelm me. Those are the tools I use for like the cars are on Friday, um it's just like it's such a mind game. Like I don't and I'm amazed how many people suffer from it
Mm-hmm.
without realizing it.
Yep.
It's just I don't know. I don't know. The perfectionism is what trips me up every time.
Yeah.
And the expectations, then I shame myself. What I call it is I keep shooting. I shooting myself, like shooting myself, shooting. Like, stop shooting yourself. You should do this.
Yeah.
You should wax this. You should. Well, you're shitting on yourself, Laurie. Stop. Treat yourself the
Yeah.
way you would treat a friend.
Well, exactly. You wouldn't force them to create such a strict routine like that, yeah, and feel good about it. So that's it, man. It's all about self care and self love and respecting
Hmm.
yourself and feeling that's enough validation, confirmation, than reaching out to someone else. You know what I mean? You don't
Yeah.
have to look to someone and say, "Hey, am I good enough?" Because that's all we're really doing in those mindsets. They're snares, they're traps,
Yeah.
and
So she's pushing me to go through a college course as a peer support person.
nice, right on.
And she's such a good therapist. She's really good. She really helps me to see the good things
Hmm.
that I do. Um, and she's she's I shouldn't say she's pushing me. She is encouraging
Yeah,
me to sign up for a college course through the Arizona University to be a peer support. And it's interesting because she says the 2 months of courses have more of a benefit for you, Laurie. And you have such knowledge with grief. The loss of a child is huge. I've worked past that. This was my first year that I actually did well. You know, every
yeah.
year this was 11 years last month. And every year it's like, I just want to die. I just want to find the beam that will hold me and let me just end it because I can't live this way anymore. I can't live with this hurt in my heart. And but this year with this DBT and the tools, it helped. I
Big time.
didn't focus on all the I don't have Joshua anymore. I don't have grandchildren from him. He didn't get married. He didn't this. I stopped all that conversation in my head. You know, actually, I'm a little jealous.
I get it.
you
I
know,
solely understand it from that
yeah.
viewpoint.
And
Yeah.
so this was my first year that I actually feel like I made progress with his death. I mean, I've lost my father, my mother, my brother, and my son.
Yeah, that's a lot.
There's only one child left in our family. And um, it's been tough. Grief has been tough. It's been a hard one, but I have to pat myself on the back because I have done the Grief Share. That's a national grieving group. I have gotten all these tools for grief. I've gotten all these tools. Now I'm working on me, like my thoughts, my mind, my perfectionism without labeling myself,
That's
you
ideal.
know.
I got to ask you too, Laurie. When you said you're jealous, did you mean in terms of like you feel he's at a place that's without pain, without yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because when you mentioned that phrase jealous, that reminded me of a song that I used to. It was more or less a tribute to my brother. It was on American Idol, and a guy was singing a song. It was a rendition, a cover for another artist, but he sang that for his friend. And I used to think about my brother when I was hearing it too. The
What was
lyrics
that?
made
What was the
sense.
name of the song?
I think it was called Jealous. Jealousy? I'll have to find it and I'll send it to you. But
Yeah, like that.
yeah, like at the crucial time that I lost my brother 6 years ago, like that's probably the biggest reason I went for the bottle more so than I ever did. But music was a big healer for me at the time, but it kept me in that stagnant position of, I don't want to say victimization mode because that's not really appropriate, but it was a dire need in order to properly heal, and I was going through different stages, and I'd say the last year and a half has been triumphant for me and my success story because I was a bloody mess. Like, just if you see my pictures from you know the first year of his passing, like the weight loss and just like I didn't want to do anything, I didn't care about anything. I just almost wanted to give up myself, and I was jealous too, feeling that he was somewhere's. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I can relate really well with that. My brother, God love him. I've taken care of him since he was in his 20s. He had he was the one that had the bipolar diagnosis, young, and he always had the personality disorder. And so he went to medicating drugs, and he got really bad. And so Gary was a very big part of my life. He lived with me probably more than he lived on his own or was married. And so, uh, 2 years ago, he was homeless in Vegas because I couldn't take it anymore. I just couldn't,
Right.
I'm in my 50s, going into my 60s, and I'm caring for a mentally ill brother, but he wouldn't take his meds. He wouldn't do anything other than be
Self
dysfunctional during,
sabotage.
yeah,
Yeah.
he just wasn't interested in getting better. And so he ended up homeless in Vegas. And then he got his disability, and I convinced him to come back to Arizona. We'd get him his apartment, and he finally started living, like on his own.
Yeah.
I would take him for his appointments. We were super close, like really close, like, really close. And so we decided to get him a dog. And I had been texting him all weekend, and we only lived like 2 miles apart. But he wasn't answering or replying to these cute dogs with pictures I was sending him. And I told my husband, I said, I think something's wrong. And so he went down there, and he was dead.
Oh, jeez.
He was done dead. He had an aorta rupture for being, medicated most of his life, not taking care of himself, not doing anything. And I spiraled out of control because I blamed myself. I blame myself that I should have been making him take the blood pressure pills. I should have made him eat better. I should have dumped out the whiskey when that last Thursday. But the weird thing was is our encounters were always like I would leave angry because he had bought zings dongs and crap food, and he was a diabetic, and he wouldn't listen. And finally, just that Thursday before he died, I decided to leave on a happy note. I had heard this voice tell me to, I noticed he was throwing bread to the birds in his driveway. So I said, Gary, let's go buy a bird feeder and some bird seed. And I'm really glad to see that you're connecting with nature. Stormed off. Well, something inside me said, go buy the bird feeder, fill it up, and hang it. So that Thursday, I hung that bird feeder. And I came into his apartment, and he's like, why did you do that? And I said, because I love you. And he started crying, and he hugged me. He said, you are the best sister. And look, they're already attacking it. So it was right outside his living room window. That was our departure.
Oh, wow.
I never had hugged that kid and told him I loved him on a departure. I was usually mad by his grocery choices and lecturing him, and I decided to let go.
Yeah.
And now I get like Gary's gone. Gary's gone. Gary is in the spirit realm. Gary is like, I believe in heaven. And so he is no longer in that mental pain, no longer in that mental headset. And yeah, there's jealousy a little bit like,
Yeah.
wow, he died. He freaking died. And, but there's a thing that we can also make our life here beautiful.
I see it
You
that way
know,
too.
we
No, it.
can make a beautiful life here.
Yeah.
We can. We can suck in and absorb and be grateful. and make it the best journey we can while we're here. So the next journey is even as wonderful. So I had to get out of that negative mindset that, oh, life sucks. It's all so hard and we have to work so hard and fight against the government and the blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not going there anymore. I'm
No.
trying to stay in a positive mindset.
Yep, and that's what I find too. It's like taking the lens off and viewing them through a different set. Because if you stick with that mentality, you're only going to self sabotage even further. And that's what I was mentioning with my brother passing. I was doing the same, drinking to death, taking pills, not caring, just going through the motions of life almost on autopilot, but angered to death, right? And then it's finally like, okay, well, how has this served you, Matt, all along, buddy? This isn't working out
Yeah.
for you. You're destroying yourself, your relationship with your wife, your son, your work. I mean, come on, like get your shit together. And I think for me, I needed to get to hit rock bottom with the sickness before I could claw my way back up and see how things really needed to be in order to have a different outlook and intent on life. But yeah,
Yeah. It's just, it's like I look at like where I live. Oh my gosh, I have so much to be grateful for. Like this all happened here as a God thing. I was not out to move from our farm. We were not shopping for real estate. We were not. I had that afternoon, Gary was living with me then, and I was so, uh, I said one day in a prayer, and I said, God, please open a door and let me get my brother into a group home, something, because I can't do this anymore. I'm at an age where I don't want responsibilities of children, and I just want open a door for a group home for him so I know he's safe and everything. And no sooner I got home as I got the phone call that the people that built this homestead were wanting to sell and move closer to the doctors because they're in their 80s. We drove up here and we had enough money to buy it outright. And it was like, okay, yeah, I prayed that God would open a door for my brother. Well, I never thought he would pick us up and take us out of that home and put us here. And I am surrounded by mountains and actually out my back door I can see the Cochise stronghold, which is where Geronimo and Cochise had the big fight, and it's all Indian ground.
yeah, right.
So we have a big Indian heritage up here, and I'm just like so grateful that I have this simple little life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have neighbors that I have to.
Contend with on the daily.
Yeah,
Luckily, I'm
I
surrounded
like.
by good neighbors. I'll toss that out there quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I have to stay focused in the present,
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know. It's just like when I get off into oh, it's so overwhelming. I have to grow all my own food. I have to process all my own food. I have to, well, then I go to the store and it's like, oh my God, this is 10 times more stressful
Oh
than,
God, yeah. All them
you know,
poisons. So you're reading
than
labels and
growing
going,
some,
"Oh, I'm putting that in my body today." Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I pick up a head of lettuce at the store, like some romaine, and I'm like, okay, you've been to the plants where they bring the shit in white, they put it in gas chambers, and they turn it green and they
Yeah.
orange.
It's crazy.
You've seen all that with your eyes. That's what made me change.
Yeah. Big time.
I was in Oregon and I went to Fresh Express factory
Mm-hmm.
and a tour, and these lemons would come in green and hard, and they put them in gas chambers, and they come out bright yellow.
Oh man,
And
it's
I'm like,
amazing, isn't it?
yeah, and I'm
Excuse me.
like, oh my God. Like they take this salad through chopping machines and then they soak it in these chemicals to keep it fresh
Preserved.
in the
Yeah.
bags.
Yeah, I know. Well, the other thing is, if you look at an apple, they're always glistening with that
Mm.
damn plastic they've got over them, right? And glyphosate they sprayed all the crops with beforehand. But when you take that out of the bag and you take a bite, and you're like, oh shit, the center is brown, it's rotting. How come the outside isn't? I'm sure that, a simple visual, I can't even say a mouth's dry, I need some water, visualization will tell you that this is a chemically induced piece of fruit and you probably shouldn't eat it, right? I mean, out of season now, it's difficult for me, but I like, and I tend to buy frozen vegetables over the produce that's sitting on the shelves or in their, display units, because they're completely sprayed. I'm not saying that the frozen veggies aren't, but I think there's a little less poison contained in those bags of frozen fruit and vegetables over the other stuff. But it's I still
So
feel.
I'm kind of in the um oh God, what is that word? Where it's you eat it in season. You eat the fruits and vegetables in season.
Right.
Um, because it's a hunter gatherer. That's what it
Yes,
is.
that's how
Hunter
our
gatherer.
ancestors actually ate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have gone from keto more to a hunter gatherer. Okay, so in the winter, I can grow greens and I can grow um, beets and turnips, and there's a season for the food.
Yeah.
The apples that are there now, are old.
Yep.
They're old. So apples are in the fall. Oranges and tangerines are in the winter. So, I do buy most of my fruit. I can't really grow fruit up here um, because of the winds. The winds, blow away the blooms, and it's just like I've been 20 years trying to grow fruit, and in Arizona, it's just really hard. So I buy from farmers markets.
So
It,
do I
it
quite
doesn't look
often.
pretty. Doesn't look pretty. The apples have little bird holes in them and everything, but you know what? It's
It's
the
a pure
closest I
form.
can get
Yeah.
the,
Exactly.
to how
Yeah.
it was. I'm just really grateful that I have this knowledge to grow. Um, like outside the kitchen window, I have in this like getting ready to plant spring and summer, the cucumbers, the tomatoes, the lettuce. I don't even have to go down to the garden. I can pick the salad right here off of the porch.
That's friggin' awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Laurie. So we're gonna have to wrap things up. I was just wondering, is there a few things you'd like to toss out to the audience as a last couple of words that might be enticing on a positive note for ones listening before we sign off?
Eat clean and don't roll your eyes at meditation and
Yeah,
mindfulness. Really, that is
I concur 100% on that.
the big takeaway for me is really, really getting in tune with your body, your gut health. I don't think I would have made it this far if I had not gone into the whole leaky gut and healing my gut. Oh, did I go off there?
Yeah, yeah. There you are.
Sorry, call.
That's okay.
So yeah, it's just really getting in tune with your body and your thoughts and the meditation and uh, kicking out the ants, automatic negative thinking.
I love it. Those are positive notes to kick off on this beautiful podcast that I had. The time to sit with you and thoroughly enjoyed it, Laurie. Like I didn't know
I
what
learned
to
a lot.
expect. Yeah, and so did I. That's what I mean. Exchanging information for both parties to take away from after the podcast and utilize it. And I'm sure the audience is going to be grateful too. So again, thank you for this, Laurie. And
Okay.
as I often say, we're probably going to have another podcast down the way. Um, every couple of months I like to, chime in with individuals to see how they're doing and check up on their updates and so forth, and for me to relish with what I've been doing
Yeah.
and whatnot.
Don't
So,
forget to put that sun water down there, or I'm going to do some
yes,
searching on
right,
that.
for sure. And
And the
well,
turmeric. the turmeric
Yes,
drink.
that's right. So what we'll do is come together after the podcast maybe and just highlight some of the links we'd like to throw down here for everyone to enjoy, right?
Okay. All right.
Perfect.
Well,
All
thank you,
right.
Matt.
Well,
I
thank you very
love what
much,
you're
Laurie.
doing.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
All right,
Bye-bye.
you take care. Bye-bye.